Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, which is protein calorie malnutrition in children. I am Dr. Khalid Mahmood, head of the Pediatric Medicine Department, Rutfa Fazaiya Medical College. The objective of this talk would be that we want the students to understand what is protein energy malnutrition, kwashiorkor, and marasmus. To know the causes about kwashiorkor and marasmus, and to be aware of the signs and symptoms and the difference between the two, and to know the treatment principles, outline of principles to be more appropriate. Let me give you a background. The first thing is that 45% of our population is under 15 years of age, and the under 5 mortality rate is pretty high, and so goes for the infant mortality rate per 1,000 live birth, which is again very high. And protein energy malnutrition is a leading cause of death in children under 5 years of age. So in the presence of protein calorie malnutrition, the mortality rate of children under 5 years particularly goes very high. This is a chart, pie chart, in which we have different causes of mortality starting from the perinatal period. We have infections, diarrhea, measles, malaria, and many other causes. And in the center of it, you can see that above 50% of mortality will be contributed in the presence of malnutrition. So that implies that malnutrition has a very important bearing in pediatric population. Let's recall, because the word malnutrition has mal and nutrition. Now, nutrition or nutrients are substances that are of extreme importance for the human life, growth, as well as well-being. It's broadly divided into macronutrients, which includes carbohydrate, proteins, fats. These are basically the energy source and help in the multiplication, repairs, and differentiation of different cells. Whereas micronutrients are trace elements and vitamins, which are very essential for the normal metabolic processes. In the deficiency of it, the normal process of growth, development, maturation, differentiation, all will be significantly impaired. The proteins, you very well know, are amino acids, and they are the building blocks and very important enzyme functions. Energy or calories are derived from macronutrients like proteins and carbohydrates and fats. You can recall that 1 gram of carbohydrate and proteins give you 4 kilocalories, whereas 1 gram of fat will give you 9 kilocalories. The micronutrients of utmost importance are vitamin A, vitamin D, B complex vitamins, iron, zinc, calcium, manganese, cobalt, selenium, and many more. Please envisage that malnutrition is like a spectrum. On the one hand, we have obesity, which is not the subject of talk today. This is currently also a problem, particularly in the Western countries, but is also rise in our part of the world when we talk about the affluent group of the population. And undernutrition is the topic as we are talking about. Now, coming to protein energy malnutrition. What is protein energy malnutrition? It's a group of diseases in which there is a depletion or deficiency of macro as well as micronutrients. And three clinical syndromes that we will be talking about is kwashiorkor, marasmus, and intermediate stage, which is marasmus as well as kwashiorkor in the same individual. Marasmus as an outline represents simple starvation, implying that you have a gross deficiency of calories, and the body tends to adapt to a chronic state of this insufficient calorie intake. The other end of the coin is the kwashiorkor, which is the body's response to insufficient protein intake particularly, and it is more of a maladaptive state. In marasmus, still the body has ample time to adapt, and kwashiorkor is a maladaptive state. Malnutrition terminology was adopted by WHO in 1976, and in different countries the percentage of these children with severe form and underweight is mentioned here. Remember, if you are protein energy malnutrition, you are also bound to be nutrient deficiency at the same time. Let me emphasize here that protein energy malnutrition is also referred to protein calorie malnutrition. So at times they are synonymous. So if you encounter protein calorie malnutrition, it implies the same as protein energy malnutrition. It is also called as the first national nutritional disorders. And as I have already alluded to, we'll be talking about three different clinical entities. So protein energy is a food gap, what you get and what actually the body needs. If you don't get inadequate amount, you will be deficit. But if you are getting, but it is inadequate, again, you will remain deficit in energy. WHO defines malnutrition as a cellular imbalance between the supply of nutrients and energy, and on the other hand is the body's demand for them to ensure the growth, maintenance, and specific functions. And as I've already said, at times you will be also be having vitamins and mineral deficiencies at the same time. When we talk of protein energy malnutrition, there will be a term which we call as primary protein energy malnutrition, implying that the availability or the quantity that is available is to begin with at fault. Whereas in secondary protein energy malnutrition, you may be getting adequate amount, but then the need of body growth is greater than can be supplied. Like you are giving fixed calories and the child has recovered from an infection, he actually needs more. But on the face value of it, you are giving adequate amount, but this will be counted as deficiency. You are getting the proteins, calories, and everything else, but the absorption problem, like in different chronic GIT problems, you are going to have a secondary malnutrition. You are getting adequate amount, but you are tending to lose the nutrients at a faster pace. So the net result of all these would be again protein energy malnutrition. So what will happen in a nutshell, your height, your weight will be affected and you will be showing signs of malnutrition. One of the biggest problem in our part of the world is this bottle feed, which significantly leads to malnutrition also. Now, in the severe childhood protein energy malnutrition, the first thing is kwashiorkor. It may sound a little bizarre name, but remember, it was first coined by Cecily Williams. She was a British nurse in 1935 to 33 to 35 in West Africa. Now, kwashiorkor is a dialect spoken in Ghana, and the language is called as Ga language. So kwashiorkor is a word in the Ga language from Western Africa. Marasmus is an extreme wasting, and at times the two can coexist in a patient at the same time. We call it kwashiorkor, marasmic kwashiorkor. We'll just elaborate on this etiology in a short way. The word kwashiorkor is actually implies a deposed, means you have removed. What used to happen is when the second child is born and the first was already on breastfeed, the mother deposes the first one and starts suckling the second. So this is the sickness of weaning or deposed baby, and as a result the calories and nutrients start suffering. So usually abrupt weaning is the process where you start introduction of semi-solid food along with breastfeeding. The current time period for ideal weaning is 6 months of age. You have dietary factors which contribute. You have infective, psychosocial, cultural factors that are operative. So in kwashiorkor, the physiological adaptation does not have enough time to strike a balance. And one of the theories says that there is actually an insult to the liver, and as a result of which there's a hypoproteinemia, and one of the logical thing that is going to happen in hypoproteinemia is the development of edema. In the food, aflatoxin, which is a fungal infection, is also contributed in large number of countries. This is a typical child with kwashiorkor. As you can see, he has puffy eyes, though he is black, and he has thin sparse hair, and he has pedal edema, and he is in a state of apathy, miserable edema on the dorsum of hand, dorsum of foot, and usually they tend to have pot belly. The constant features, clinical features of kwashiorkor, the first and foremost is the edema, however trivial it may be. So you have an evidence of underweight with edema clinically. You have mental changes, apathy, lack of interest, lethargy, and so on and so forth, and they are growth retarded. The usually present signs are the moon phase. In the hair changes, the hair are hypopigmented and easily pluckable. In the skin, you have flaky paint dermatitis, and you have pavement-like skin, and they tend to have anemia at the same time. Occasionally, you will find a palpable liver, enlarged heart, maybe in failure because of dehydration and edema. Because of diarrhea and vomiting, they will be tend to be having dehydration, and there will be evidence of signs of vitamin deficiency, of vitamin A in eyes, and of vitamin D in the form of rickets, and of B complex vitamins. Signs of infections can also be found. This is the summary of what we have already talked about. The other side of the coin is the marasmus. The word marasmus is derived from the Greek marasmos, which basically implies there's a wasting or shrinkage or emaciation or withering. It is caused due to inadequate intake of proteins, but particularly there is calorie deficient. Marasmus is the end result of starvation, where both proteins and calories are deficit, but it's the calories which are predominantly involved. And the response of the body to this starvation is an adaptive, whereby in kwashiorkor there's a maladaptation, and hence in marasmus there is no edema clinically. In marasmus, the body utilizes all fats first, then it utilizes the muscles for the conservation of energy, and ultimately what is left with an extremely healthy child. Marasmus is also a severe form of protein energy malnutrition, and primarily it will be caused by the deficiency in energy or calories, and as a result the height would remain short, and there will be severe wasting of the muscles and other tissues. The typical age for the development of marasmus is usually 6 months onward. And one of the good reason or common reason for marasmus is chronic diarrheas. Poverty or famine states and diarrhea are usually the precipitating factors, particularly in marasmus. Ignorance of the parents, because we have so much of food fadism, and even if a protein diet is available, we have somehow strange sort of understanding that in some cases you should avoid protein diet or high calorie diet, and as a result the child suffers. Too little of breast milk and complementary feed, if we start late and not of quality, it's all collectively to add to marasmus. This is a child with marasmus, and you can see how emaciated the child is. And in another picture, this is the classical picture, and what you can see is an old man look with loss of buccal pad. We should not call it, but one of the simile that is given is a monkey face. That's good for understanding, but we avoid using that. You can see the limbs, they are just like broom. Their wrists are widened because of vitamin D deficiency. The chest is very visible as if it's a bony cage. The limbs are extremely thin, and the buttocks are flattened and wrinkled. So this is how a child with marasmus is going to look, and all the bony projections will become very prominent. So this is a child with significant failure to thrive. They are a very apathetic look, miserable look on their face. Again, this is the child, flexed posture in the mother's lap. Now the third thing is, we have talked about kwashiorkor, we have talked about marasmus, and what happens is at times we have the two together. Marasmus is when the expected weight of a child is less than the 60% of the expected weight for that age and sex. To give you an example, if a child of 1 year of age is expected to be having a weight, normal weight of 10 kg, and if his weight is 6 kg, this is 60%. Now 60 and less than 60% of the weight will put the child in a category of marasmus. Now this is a child, as you can see in the mother's lap, the weight is actually less than 60% of the expected weight, and apart from showing signs of extreme emaciation, here the cheeks are full, the eyes are puffy, and there is an edema on the dorsum of hands as well as feet. So we have the clinical evidence of edema. So this tips a balance towards kwashiorkor, and we have evidence of extreme wasting at the same time. These are the signs of marasmus. And you can see the mother, maybe it's the mother, and the complexion of her. And this is a hypopigmented child. Even the hairs are hypopigmented, which is very unusual, and that is very suggestive of kwashiorkor. There are various classifications how we categorize the magnitude or severity of protein energy malnutrition. One is a Wellcome classification. The Wellcome classification has an advantage that it takes into account the presence of edema. So if the weight of a child is less than 60% and there is no edema, it's straightforward marasmus. If the weight of this child is less than 60% of the expected weight for that age and sex, there is edema, it will become marasmic kwashiorkor. And the weight, when it is between 60 to 80% with edema, it will be kwashiorkor. And when it is 60 to 80% but no edema, will be a child with underweight. So that is how clinically we tend to classify our patients. And this one I have talked about is Wellcome classification. The other more commonly used one is a Gomez, modified Gomez classification. And again, we have three important grades: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. Grade 3 modified Gomez classification is when the weight is less than 60% for the expected weight for that age. It is severe or grade 3 malnutrition. When the weight is between 60 to 70% of the expected weight for that age, it is grade 2 or moderate protein calorie malnutrition. And if the weight is between 70 to 80% or 90%, it is mild or grade 1 malnutrition. If I ask you a question, in your opinion, picking a child in grade 1 malnutrition is more creditable for you or grade 2 and 3? The answer would be, if you pick a child in grade 1 in very early malnutrition, you are going to get more credit. Grade 3 malnutrition is something which even anybody can pick it up. What are the complications of protein energy malnutrition or protein calorie malnutrition for that form? It's hypoglycemia. There are 5H. There's actually 6H. H for hypoglycemia. Because of the poor reserve, they tend to develop hypoglycemia very easily. Because of lack of muscle mass as well as of fat, they tend to develop hypothermia even when other people may be sweating. Because of low muscle mass and multiple other reasons, they tend to develop hypokalemia. Now, hypokalemia will be having its own list of complications on the heart, and they tend to die suddenly without an apparent cause. They tend to develop hyponatremia. They tend to develop hypoprothrombinemia, vitamin K deficiency sign. They tend to go into cardiac failure very easily when fluid is not given in a very calculated way. And even in the presence of edema, they still may be dehydrated and may be in a state of shock, and they tend to have infections which are viral and bacterial. Let me emphasize a little bit more on the etiology. Now, the etiology can be social, economic, biological, and environmental factors. They can be present in isolation, or they can be present in multiple form. And the common causes are lack of breastfeeding and giving a diluted formula. These are the common problem in our part of the world. Not starting proper weaning food. Overcrowding in the family. Because of scanty supply, the food gets divided and the young children tends to get smaller quantities. Ignorance. Ignorance is also linked with literacy rate. Lack of health education and hygienic practices. Poverty, you see, it has not come at the top. It actually goes lower down in the list. Multiple infections and familial disharmony. What familial disharmony implies is the relationship with, if the mother is divorced or separated, if the father is an addict and jobless, they all contribute to these protein energy issues. Then we have an important role of free radicals. Now, free radicals are electrons which causes damage to the cell membrane. We call it as lipid peroxidation, and these are the two new theories which explains a possibility that this is how the mechanism comes into play and causes damage to the liver, and this then results in kwashiorkor. And then it is the age of the host that is also important, because it is frequent in young infants and young, because they tend to grow rapidly, and if the allowances are not adequate, they are going to suffer. The pregnant and lactating mothers can affect the growth of the child in utero and after delivery. Remember, protein energy malnutrition can also happen in elderly also. So these are the metabolic changes that take place in the body. In kwashiorkor, particularly the serum proteins will be very low, and apart from low proteins, various important proteins of the body also suffers, like transferrin, lipoproteins. They tend to develop hypoglycemia. The plasma cortisol and growth hormone are high, but insulin, which is an anabolic hormone, is very low. Their percentage of body water and extracellular fluid is increased. So they have gross imbalance of electrolytes, potassium and magnesium particularly, they are depleted. Various other enzymes like the enzyme in the gut is reduced, so the milk sugar is difficult to tolerate it and they tend to develop loose motions, watery stools. The lipids and cholesterol are low. They tend to develop ketonuria, and they tend to develop iron deficiency, iodine deficiency. They tend to remain in a state of metabolic acidosis, and overall the growth is affected, the wound healing mechanism suffer severely. It's the same things that I've already talked about in a diagrammatic way. What is the treatment? The 3 stages of treatment, and in these 3 outlines of the treatment, what is important is the hospital treatment. The hospital treatment is basically for resolving the acute life-threatening conditions of like hypothermia, hypoglycemia, combating infection, correction of dehydration, correction the potassium, correcting the low hemoglobin and various vitamin deficiency. So the whole purpose is that we want to resolve the life-threatening situation. Then comes restoring the normal nutritional balance by dietary management, and here we begin with low proteins because the body has adapted to a new state, and quick drastic changes will cause more of damage as compared to an advantage. So everything is done very slowly, and subsequently ensuring the availability of the staple diets which are inexpensive, easily digestible, easily available, and making the family understand that how and when to give. And finally is ensuring that the nutritional rehabilitation takes place properly. This concept is basically based on educating the mother and how to feed, how to come back if any significant clinical sign which can be of some danger, should come back to the health facility, and stimulating the child physically and mentally at the same time. Can we prevent protein energy malnutrition? In the first place, we should not be seeing children with protein energy malnutrition, particularly the primary one. And hence, the answer is a big, straight yes. And how we can prevent malnutrition? Very early part, looking into the health of the mother in pregnancy, promoting breastfeeding, development of low-cost weaning, nutritional education and promotion of correct feeding practices, family planning and spacing of children. Whenever you have 2 children under 5 years of age, it significantly taxes the mother's attention. Ensuring all vaccines of common diseases which have high mortality and morbidity has an important role in the prevention of protein energy malnutrition. Food fortification, in which salt is normally added with iodine. So we have various food items which are fortified with iron, iodine, vitamin A and vitamin D is fortified in various ghee and oil that is consumed. Last but not the least is early diagnosis and treatment. Proper weight, looking into the child's overall health is the earliest way to pick up if the growth of a child is faltering, and immediate proper treatment can be instituted.